guys, I just wanted to take a second and share a little bit about what it looks like during my time here at the hospital. I know I've had quite a few people ask me, like, why do they keep you up there for 2 weeks? What's going on? And don't you ever get bored? So I just figured I'd go through, and these times are going to be estimated, of course. When you're in the hospital, times are always flexible. Some things do not change. Some things never change. So normally when the whole purpose for me to come in the hospital usually means I've got some type of lung infection. Now with cystic fibrosis, that is the biggest thing that we fight. Now I may be in the hospital for other things, like we get pancreatitis from time to time, and that pancreatitis can then put you in the hospital while you're recovering from the pancreatitis. There's bowel obstructions. We do have issues with that sometimes. That can put you in the hospital. About 90% of CF patients actually have dialysis. They have diabetes, and so that uncontrolled diabetes can put you in the hospital. But the number one reason that a cystic fibrosis patient would be put in the hospital is because of a lung infection. And once you're my age, or colonized as they call it, it means that you've had infections to the severity that it is now almost a part of your lung tissue, and that no matter how good the IV antibiotics are and all the oral treatments and things that you may do at home, the infection is always going to be there. So the name of the game is keeping it, as I call it, beat down into submission, right? So as long as I keep the infection manageable, then I can stay out of the hospital. But when the infection becomes more than I can manage, and there's only one medication that I can take out of the hospital, and that is ciprofloxacin orally. So it's the only medication, antibiotic that you can take that actually breaks down the type of bacteria that I tend to grow. Different CF patients may have different bacteria that they're colonized with, so they may have a few more options. For me, I have just one medication that I can use at home as far as the antibiotics go. So then when I'm in the hospital, I'm coming in to get big time antibiotics. So these are like what we call horse antibiotics, the ones you could give a horse and they kill over. Even the oral antibiotics, to be clear, like when I take the Cipro, I take 750 milligrams twice a day. Now, if you're dealing with a doctor who's not a CF doctor, a lot of times, and I've literally had doctors tell me, they don't make that dose. And I'm like, I promise they do. And they're like, and then the one doctor looks it up and they're like, yeah, but you're too small for that. Okay. So it's just, they give us the strongest that we can at home. So then when you come in the hospital, they're going to be giving you 2, maybe 3 IV antibiotics, because these infections are very tenacious. And the longer you let an infection like fester in your lungs really bad, it's causing scarring of your lung tissue. And so that is what becomes the most fatal, is at some point the lungs will fail, and they do fail because the infection has gone too far and it has scarred the lungs shut, or the lungs just refuse to work anymore out of exhaustion. And so keeping them as cleared out as possible clearly is why Oscar beats on my chest every day. And we do everything we can to try to keep the infection at bay, and then not letting it go too far before, it causes severe additional damage. So then, also in addition to the IV antibiotics, I wind up getting chest PT. So that's like where they beat on your chest, your sides, your back. Now that was a very gentle version. They beat on it like they're beating snot out of a tube, because that's kind of what they're doing. And so it sounds a lot worse than it is. And my ribs are actually quite dense because of a lifetime of receiving beatings or chest PT. So we get that 4 times a day. And then monitoring your diet. When I get sick, I tend to not want to eat. My best friend sometimes will be this little sucker, because then even if I don't feel like eating, I know I can supplement and at least not lose weight, but I still tend to lose weight anyway when I get sick. But then it helps me when I'm here getting enough calories, and then pushing those supplements too to help get that weight back up. Because again, the healthier you are, the better you are at fighting infections. So, and that's the biggest piece of it. And then for me, and for some other CF patients that tend to try to live their own life their way, the other purpose of being in the hospital is to get some rest. Some CF patients live a very moderate and modified life so that they don't wind up as worn down. But for myself and many other CF patients that I know that either have a job or they have family, when we're at home, as long as we can function, we're going to be moving. And honestly, that tenacity tends to do well in the long run because it's that pushing that helps us to stay healthy, that helps us to fight. But then when you're in the hospital, then it's expected for you to rest a little bit, take it easy a little bit. And then also we do pulmonary rehab while we're here. So if you've ever heard me talk about being in rehab before, it's probably pulmonary rehab. I've actually been through pulmonary rehab at home quite a few times. If I've gotten a really bad lung infection that really took me down a few notches, put me on oxygen full time, things like that, I'll do some pulmonary rehab at home as well. But while you're in the hospital, you're expected Monday through Friday to walk on the treadmill for 30 minutes. And that's really good because it allows you, one, to get out of the room, but two, it also allows you to not lose all of your muscle mass or your ability to walk. You know, I don't know if you've ever been stuck in the bed for a week or 2 weeks. Excuse me, I've had a couple of visits where I was too sick to get up and walk on the treadmill. And boy, I could feel it. When I did finally get up, oh my gosh, it was something. So being able to keep yourself physically exercising, no matter how sick you are, is really, really important. So the average morning, I tend to wake up between 7 and 8 a.m. Our doctor, he always comes in the morning. If it's Monday through Friday and Rosenbluth's on duty, he's usually coming into my room by 7:30 or 8. And I know some of the older or younger CF patients, he goes to them later, not later in the day, but like he hits the old people first because he knows we're more likely to be awake, or that's what I've heard anyway. Then, you know, by then you've had shift change, nurses are in, and really between that 8 and 10 a.m. spot, you're super busy. You're ordering your breakfast, the nurses are coming in, they're starting IV antibiotics for the day. You wind up getting all of your oral medications that you take for the day, and then you're getting round 1 of your chest PT. Usually that's done by about 10 or 11, just depending on where you fell on people's schedules. By about 11, sometimes if you're going to exercise, you can choose to exercise before lunch. You may go at 11. I'm more of an afternoon exerciser, so if I have to, I'll exercise at 11, but I prefer exercising in the afternoon. Then about 12 o'clock, 12 to 1 is when you're definitely going to be starting to think about lunch, ordering your lunch. But by 1 o'clock, 2 at the absolute latest, you'll be getting your round 2 of chest PT. Each round of chest PT, by the way, takes about 40 minutes. So it's not a, one and done, depending on how many nebulizers you have to do, the thing where you breathe in the medication. And then the chest PT itself takes about 20-30 minutes by itself. So depending on how many nebulizers you have, and then the chest PT, about 40-45 minutes. It used to be an hour every time back when they did a lot more lobes. So it's a little less than it used to be. So then now it's about 1 or 2. By then you certainly should have walked on the treadmill. At some point, by the way, in that morning spot, if you're lucky, you can take a quick shower. Just depends on how you're feeling that day. Then by 1 or 2, pulmonary rehab should be done. Your second treatment should be done. Normally you'll have some type of IV antibiotic that's due within that next hour to hour and a half. Any afternoon meds that you take would be taken at that time as well. Between 2 and 3 is my favorite time to try to steal a nap. Because all of your lunch stuff is done. They're not going to get started for your evening stuff yet. So between 2 and 3 or 3 and 4, depending on when I walked on the treadmill, is a chance for you to try to rest and relax. Every hour on the hour, though, the nurses stick their head in and check on you. If you get nurses that know you, they will not wake you up. Some of the new nurses, or if they're floating from other hospitals, they may be like, I'm just checking, are you okay? And, you know, you're going to wiping the drool off your mouth. I'm fine, you know. If they're really good nurses, or at least, you know, a little flexible, they'll just be like, oh yeah, I checked on you several times this afternoon, you were fine. By about 4 o'clock, the stuff gets started all over again. They're going to be doing your vitals. They're going to, you're going to be starting to get that third round of chest PT. So between 4 and 5, usually 3:30 to 5, somewhere in there, you're going to get that third round of chest PT. And then you're going to want to start thinking about ordering your dinner. And then at 7, it's shift change again. Hopefully you've had dinner by then, or if you're a late orderer like I am, maybe just finishing your dinner. Then about 8 o'clock, you're going to start IV antibiotics again. They're going to be giving your evening medications, and between 8 and 10 p.m., they're going to be coming to do your 4th round of treatments. So by 10 o'clock at night, you're tired. You know, there's only been, because realistically, my little windows are between, in general, 11 and 12, 3 and 4, and 6 and 7. These are the 3-hour blocks that almost certainly, now that doesn't account for nutritionists coming in, pulmonary rehab coming in just to confirm your time, different things like that, other you know, chaplains coming in, things like that. But those are times that are more likely to let you catch a little hour cat nap here and there. And then by 10 o'clock at night, you're definitely ready for bed. Now that doesn't mean that your treatments are over. Depending on the IV antibiotics that you give, some are once a day, some are 3 times a day, some are 4 times a day. And if you're getting 3 of them and 2 of them are 4 times a day, clearly it's a little bit more. But I normally, like the schedule I'm on now, I think I'm at 6, 2, and 10. So at 10 is my last IV antibiotic. And then they'll come in at 4 and do vitals again in the morning. And then it's about 5:30, 6-ish, somewhere in there, they're coming and starting the IV antibiotics for the morning dose. So, and just getting everything ready for me to, you know, finally decide to get up at 7. So as you can hear, and if you get, again, really good staff, they won't come in and wake you up in the middle of the night unless they have to. I have had some antibiotics that were closer together. I had 6-hour antibiotics a few times where, you know, it didn't matter. It was, you're up at 9:03, 9:03, you know, so you're up. And I'm pretty good at sleeping through treatments. My husband can attest to this. He's seen me, because sometimes they'll come in 3 times a week in the middle of the night, about 4 or 5 o'clock, and do lab draws. And depending on the line that you have, like this line that I have, they can actually draw those basic, like CBC, that kind of stuff, through the line I have. Some panels you have to do, it has to be straight from the vein, so it can't be through a line. And he said he's seen them come in, turn on the big light, draw blood, and leave, and I never bat an eye because I slept. And you spend enough time in the hospital, and it's a what do you call that? Like a casualty of experience, or whatever you want to call it, occupational, but not occupational, situation where it's just, once I'm asleep, I'm asleep. And it's just been from a lifetime of being messed with in the hospital at night. So I sleep really good, which is good when I'm here. I'm not always as good when I'm at home and somebody needs something from me. But anyway, so like I said, I know that's a lot of information, but I know I just had enough people asking, what is it, you know, what are they doing to you for 2 full weeks? So that's really what they're doing. They are really getting those lungs in shape, getting the chest PT, getting me some good beatings while I'm up here. I love how every one of my family members, when they call up and they're talking, and like I'm getting chest PT or they're coming in to do it, they're like, beat her for me. And so it just doesn't fail. Every one of my family members, at least at some point, scream that out to respiratory, you know. And some of the respiratory now are like family, because they've been my respiratory therapist for 20 years. And so that's how we do get closer to the respiratory team sometimes, because it's the same staff for 20 years. And they're spending, you know, 40 minutes with you 3 times a day, 4 times a day for 20 years. the 2 weeks that you're here, you do get kind of close. So, anyway, so that's why I do get some rest. I don't get a lot of sleep per se, but a lot more rest. And more than anything, I am just blessed that I live in a country and I live in a time where there are treatments for cystic fibrosis patients. Even 50 years ago, heck, even 20 years ago, there was still so little known about CF. It was in 1988 before they actually discovered exactly where cystic fibrosis was in the genetic makeup. They believed it was a genetic disease, but they had no way to test for it as far as testing it genetically because we didn't know enough about the genome. So in 1988 was when the CF gene was located on the 7th chromosome. I think it's on the 14th marker is where cystic fibrosis is located. And of course, then now treatments are available. I could have been born any other time in history and I would not be alive at this age. So I'm very grateful that the Lord selected me for such a time as this. And that if nothing else, I hope I'm getting to share with people, my friends, people who love me, but that just don't know exactly what I'm doing up here. They may hear me make comments like I'm going up to Hotel Barnes. My favorite round of statements is like I'm having to go back in the big house, or I'm getting out on parole. Like tomorrow, I get out on parole. I never say I'm getting out completely because we know that as part of CF treatment, there will be another stay. So technically it's parole. And as long as I stay on good behavior, I can stay out longer. So as long as I do my treatments and I do what I'm supposed to be doing and stay away from sick people, the hope is that I can delay having to come back. So we always kind of joke and say, I'm getting out on parole tomorrow. So anyway, but what questions do you have? Like, what questions do you have about staying in the hospital? What type of things are out there? What treatments are new? I mean, anything that you would want to know about what I go through, because I know that God doesn't waste anything. And I would much rather educate and share and give my experiences. I'd love to compare it to other people's experiences. And I know everybody experiences these things differently. You may get another CF who is like, well, my experience is different, and every hospital is different too. Like some CF centers now in the country, as far as I understand, they don't even do chest PT, they do a vest, which we'll talk about that another day. But it's basically a device that mimics chest PT, but not without the actual hitting. I'm old school. I think that the chest PT is the best way. I have a vest. I do not like it. I feel like I can't breathe with it on. So anyway, so chest PT's, best, and our doctor is old school. You can bring your vest if you want to the hospital and do it between your chest PT treatments, but you can't do it instead of, which is good. I think that the younger kids, the vest is easier just because it's all they know. And so I think it's good for them, especially when they're sick, to be able to get some good beatings in. That's important. So anyway, I love you guys. I hope that you learned something. And like I said, if you have any comments or questions, just post them below and I'll do my best to answer them. Have a good day. Bye.